This is my specific approach, my philosophy to being consistent to the degree I have been for the past decade in my main fighting game. Until you're trying to get to the tippy top, or you've gotten to the top, and you're like, okay, how do I stay there? That's when you start thinking about consistency. But if I had thought about that earlier on in my journey, I would have gotten stronger faster. This is important for any fighting game, for any character you're playing. And it becomes even more powerful the stronger your character is. This idea of consistency and picking strategies to victory that will lead to you winning more often. Not because of your raw skill. Because your opponent, you are equal on this, or close to equal. So it's literally a coin toss who's going to win. It's just random chance at that point. That's Casino Tekken.
Let's go gambling!
How do you weight it in your favor? You got to use a strategy that's more consistent than theirs. It doesn't make you better than them. It makes you more consistent than them. It's a whole separate skill set of consistency. I know a lot of players are super focused on, I want to get stronger. I want to be a better player. I want to be able to beat strong players. Players who I want to be stronger than them. I want to be the strongest person around. And when I'm trying to bursting the bubble of, there's not a skill cap, but as you get closer and closer to the top, there's not as much difference anymore between you and another player. There can still be huge gaps and stuff, but like as you're climbing up from top 8, top 3, top 2, winning every event, or like 70% of the events you go into, you win that. This is how you make that switch. This is what you have to do. After 2019, I get first, second, first, second, first, second. I stop getting fifth. First, second. I'm winning everything I'm going into. When I start getting first place, more often than second, the switch there, which I guess is the last 3 years, I have to defend. How can I make defense part of my offense? How can I make my defense part of their mental stack that they now have to deal with in such a way that it actually makes them feel pressured in the same way they would if I was hitting them in the face with a button? It was a mentality switch of attacking without pressing a button, without hitting them, letting them run into my fist by either blocking and then doing a thing, or moving around, making them whiff because I accept their move. Using different kinds of movement techniques and option selects that are based on movement techniques to open up my opponent who's trying to hit me. And I no longer even cared whether my moves were blocked or not anymore. It was irrelevant to me. I didn't care if you blocked it, because the goal wasn't to hit you. The goal was for you to block it and to see what are you going to do next. How are you going to try and hit me after you block this? And then I'm going to attack that. I'm not trying to get the first hit. I'm trying to get the third hit. The hit after the block. That's where the attacks are, and that's where you can make reads safely with your defense. That's how I skyrocketed my win rate against players that are also strong. Just let them reveal their options to themselves, to you. That was the first layer of it. Sometimes you don't have to do anything. Sometimes you can just give up your turn completely, just to see, what do you want to do? What will you do? Because some players, we got wise to my strategy of, I'm going to kill you for trying to press a button on my defense. They stopped pressing buttons. And then I was faced with a problem. Okay, what do I do against a person who just won't press a button, who won't do anything, who's just willing to just wait forever? How do I beat that person? I wait with them while moving and dancing around them. And this is when I can start to use reads again that are hard. Because really, to open those players up, I have to make harder reads. This is where my character became a problem. And this is where I found the limits of my character, and I had to confront them. As I went from getting first, second, I realized there really isn't a safe way for her, as my character, to deal with that problem. The top tiers do have ways to deal with that. They get to still enforce their will on you if you decide to just do nothing. My character really couldn't. I had to just say, okay, fine. I have to make hard reads now. So I went back to layer 1 of my strategies of, okay, now I got to make reads again. Cool. But I was comfortable with them, and I already knew a lot of ways to gather information for my reads safely without making hard reads, without exposing myself to death. But up until this point, I was able to win without needing to expose myself to death anymore. Now, suddenly, I needed to re-expose myself to death all over again. And that's because of my character. And at that point, also, I could say, it's time to switch. Time to switch mains. I was unwilling to do that because I figured, I've been with her long enough. I've done well enough with her. But I might have to say, my goal cannot be to win every event with this character. That's an unnecessary and unrealistic expectation to place on myself and goal to set, because there's a level of volatility she has that if a player plays a certain way, I can't strategically get out of. I have to make harder reads, and they don't. So I'd reached the limit of how consistent I could play with her, of how consistent my strategy could be. I basically optimized it as much as I could based on what her tools were available to her. And I accepted that and said, okay, fine. I'm fine with this. So that last part's important, because your character you're playing may not be the worst character in your game. I hope to God it's not, because that's a hard journey. They might be strong. It might be something else. But what you want to figure out is, what can your character do that is like almost broken? And then lean into that and build your strategy around that. My character was broken on the mix-up front, on the overwhelming one's mental stack as an offensive monster. She was really good at that. So I leaned into it and said, okay, I'm going to make this the thing I focus on. I'm going to make this the strategic win condition that I'm constantly working toward in everything else I do. Whether it's defense, whether it's attack, anything, I'm going to constantly push towards that position at all times, because that's where I'll be able to win more often, because of the character's tool set. Especially, and this would change sometimes based on the character I was fighting, but these are like the 4 layers basically of my approach to being consistent. Find a way to not have to make big reads. Find a way to not expose yourself, if you do have to make reads, to potential taking lots of damage. If you must take damage, it needs to be really, really worth it. Like, super worth it. Like, let's say if you failed at that thing like 4 out of 5 times, would you still do that thing? If the answer is no, then maybe your strategy is looking inconsistent. Because you have to factor in you're going to be wrong. And sometimes you need to be showing the wrong answer a couple of times, because your opponent can't be comfortable with anything that you do. So you have to show you're not conditionable. But if your approach requires you to show them things that's going to get you killed for being unconditionable, you're going to die more often than you're going to win. That's not consistent. And the next part is using defense as your offense. Find a way to make blocking, movement, whiffing, stepping, fit that in to your concept of doing damage to your opponent. You're not just avoiding damage. That's not enough. You can't just not take damage. You're not going to win the game that way. Because what if your character you're fighting against has better mix-ups than you? What if every moment you don't pressure them is a weighted in their favor that you're going to die? The more guesses you give up, the more guesses you have to make, the more likely you're going to die. So it doesn't matter if you block it. It doesn't matter if you make it whiff. It only matters if, because you stepped it, because you blocked it, because they whiffed it, they died for it. They have to die for doing anything. Anything. If they breathe wrong on you, they have to die for that. Find a way to make that work. I know you can do that in every game. You can do it in Virtual Fighter, you can do it in Tekken, you can do it in Street Fighter. All the games work this way. You can do it in KOF. This is not unique. This is just the way. What's unique here is I'm telling you this is what I did to be consistent. Now, your approach may not be that way. Your approach might be different. You got, mine was very tailored to my skill set, my unique abilities, and like me knowing myself really well. You might have different strengths than I do. You probably do. You need to find out for yourself what resonates with you, what doesn't. And as you grow as a player, continually revisit this idea of how do you want to win? What's your win condition? What positions do you want to be in to get victory?